Alright, what's up? I'm back. I know it's been a while. Fucking hell. Wasn't my intention, but I've been a busy boy these last year or so. I don't even know how long it's been since I've done a live stream. I kind of plan on coming back a bit more often now, but I want to say that I'm in a new place. I'm in my first ever apartment. I moved here last year. I'm in a different town, still in Arizona though, and life is kind of good, I guess. Um, I'm going to be working soon again, and once I get more income in, I'm planning on getting two things: a PS5 and potentially later this year a decent and actually good gaming PC. Those are my main goals in terms of getting what I need in terms of money this year. Okay, it's going to be expensive, but the first thing we're going to do is get a PS5, and then I'm going to try to get Dead Space, Hogwarts Legacy, and maybe Resident Evil 4, I don't know. But definitely Dead Space will be the first game I get without a doubt, because I'm a huge Dead Space fan, and I'm so happy it was remastered. One second. Alright, so there's a lot to talk about today. Um, shit. Alright, so there's a lot to talk about today. I don't care if anybody's watching or not. This is mainly just a video for my channel. Um, I'm just using the live stream because it saves the whole VOD to the channel because it's easier. So yeah, I'm still on PS4 right now, so don't laugh. I'm trying to change that though. I start my job at the very least sometime this week, but I'll have to see. Um, it really depends. I don't want to get into where I'm working. Minimum wage job though for now, and I'm gonna try to move on to a career path in the future with things like maybe security or something along those lines and try to get paid better that way. But for now, I'm gonna start with the minimum wage job, get some shit I need, and move on from there. Um, alright, so, uh, other than that, it's been pretty boring. I got a snake, a pet snake. That's pretty cool. His name is Chiquita Dave. I might post some stuff about him maybe. Um, he's cool. I love him. He's a boa constrictor. He's not even a year old yet, so he's still a small little boy. But he's actually going. I think he's about to start a shed cycle. Because his eyes look a bit cloudy. But yeah, I've always loved reptiles, especially snakes. So I got one finally, and he's fucking adorable. I love him. He's my baby boy. Um, but let's get into the main topic of this video, I guess, and that is the whole gun control bullshit in the United States. So, first of all, let me find a game. And I'm going to try to keep it neutral. I'm not going to be some outright, conservative who defends everything. I'm not going to be a lefty who says, oh, no one needs an AR-15. I'm going to give a balanced discussion the best I can with it and see how it goes from there. First of all, I don't want people to listen to me rant, so what I'm going to do is try to fix that with settings. Fuck, hold on. I know there's a way to do it. I did it before, where it automatically mutes people in the lobby. But how do I do that? Microphone. You'll still be able to, no, I don't want to do that. Wasn't there something like a channel? How do I change channels? I don't know how to do that. Create your own channel. Oh, fuck. No, I'm not gonna do that then. Oh, wait. Oh, alright. Alright, so hopefully people won't be able to hear me then if I do this. Yeah, because that's party game channel, my channel, so alright, hopefully that works. Anyway, I'm going to get into it. So, in the United States, a lot of people don't really know, I want to say, about gun laws in the United States, and it's kind of annoying. What gun laws we do have, what we don't have. There's a lot of misconceptions out there about what guns we can and can't have, and I want to get into that first. First of all, you can't just own anything you want in the United States in terms of guns. While it may seem like that in comparative to other European countries or Canada or even Mexico, although Mexico might be different because, while guns are technically kind of banned there, you can still own them because they're not really enforced and the police are corrupt as shit, so it doesn't really matter. But in the United States, you can have basically 3 types of guns that are considered that you don't need to go through special hoops to get. That is rifles, pistols, and shotguns, mainly. There might be a few others I'm missing, but those are the ones I can think of. Rifles, pistols, and shotguns. A rifle is anything with a barrel of 16 inches or more. And our shit. Rifle with a 16-inch barrel or more with a stock on the end. Shit. And a pistol is anything with a barrel of 16 inches or less than 16 inches without a stock on it. We needed to define it somehow. It was basically the definition of these things were added to an amendment to the National Firearms Act in the 1930s. And essentially what that act aimed to do was actually just completely ban pistols and short-barreled rifles completely, but, you know, due to a variety of different things, like gun lobbyists saying, well, this would ban this hunting pistol, this would ban this hunting rifle that nobody's killing each other with because it's like a 22 or something. Nobody's killing each other with these, and this amendment would basically restrict our rights to own these things. Then they said, all right, fine, you're right. So they added stuff, removed stuff, and eventually we got to what we consider to be a rifle, pistol, and shotgun now. By the way, a shotgun would be a shotgun needs to have a barrel length of 18 inches and overall length of 24 inches, I believe. 26 or 24, I don't remember, something like that. So it cannot be underneath that length. There are some workarounds people figured out, like the Mossberg Shockwave, I believe. Like, that's a bit different, but essentially, you can't have a shotgun. Jesus Christ, this lag. You can't have a shotgun that's a that's like you could have a shotgun that's like has an 18-inch barrel, and that would be legal. But as soon as you put a pistol grip on it, usually it goes underneath that 24-inch or 26-inch overall length, and that would become a illegal. So you can't just do that. You would need to go through. You would need to register it with the NFA, I believe, as a AOW and any other weapon. So the way the ATF works is that if you want to say get a short-barreled rifle, that is a rifle with a barrel underneath 16 inches and a stock, you need to register it with the ATF. And to do that, you got to do what's called Form 1 or Form 4 if you're getting it transferred. And you're measuring the length of the barrel and the stock, and you're submitting it, and that's a whole other thing. Basically, we decided as a country that it should be illegal to own these things. Despite the fact that, you know, it doesn't really change the function of a gun. The whole point of the amendment was to keep people from, like, cutting down barrels and their stocks and hiding it in their pockets and making that illegal, like converting a regular rifle into a short-barreled rifle. But since technology has advanced since that amendment was passed, you can buy an AR-15 pistol that has a short barrel length but with no stock on it, and it's still more concealable than a short-barreled rifle, despite the fact that the whole reason why short-barreled rifles, like, you know, were exempt, or not exempt, but were included in that regulation was because they're supposedly more concealable, which again doesn't make sense when pistols aren't banned from that, and you can just buy one of those and hide it in your pocket or something, and that's just as effective. So that NFA Act has a lot of weird things, but what it did do, I would say reasonably, is the paying the tax stamp for a machine gun. So in the United States, you can't just go to the store and buy a machine gun. You just can't do that. That's illegal. Shit, hold on. Okay. That's illegal. You can't do that. Oops. Also, thanks to the, I think it's the Gun Control Act of 1987, I think, or 86, I don't remember which. All machine guns that were made before 1987 are those are the only ones allowed to be sold. After that, there are no more new machine guns that you're allowed to create unless you're a licensed machine gun manufacturer. So, unless you want to get through all the hoops of becoming an FFL and a machine gun manufacturer to make your own machine guns and basically privately making your own and owning them yourselves because you're a manufacturer, the only machine guns the public is allowed to have access to are any guns made before 1987. And at the end of the day, you still need to do the right paperwork, you still need to do the right background checks, you still need to fill out the right forms, wait at least 6 months, 6 months, I think that's the word, for the ATF to approve of your transfer of that machine gun, and then it's yours. Which, congratulations, the cheapest effective machine gun are the Mac 10 or Mac 11 lowers, and those are going to run you at the very least $7,000 these days. So that's why you're not really seeing shootings committed with machine guns, is because they're kind of a headache to get. The ATF drags their heels in approving machine gun transfers. Even if you're legally allowed to own one or even already have one, you still got to go through that $200 tax stamp form every single time you want a new machine gun. So it's not like you've been approved to own machine guns so you can buy as many as you want now. That doesn't exist. Every time you want one, you got to go through that 6-month waiting period and then fill out the forms and all that stuff. So it's annoying, and that's why you're not seeing shootings with machine guns, despite what the public may believe. You just don't see that. You might see gang-relating shootings with maybe a Glock switch, because those are illegally put on, but anybody who has a Glock switch and is using it in public, I don't think they really care about what the gun law says about making machine guns. They're just going to do it because they have nefarious reasons to make that. And now, obviously, there's debates on whether or not, civilians should be able to own machine guns in general, but I think the whole argument is kind of stupid these days because your average civilian doesn't have the ability or wants to go through the trouble of getting a machine gun, especially one that has limited parts and was made before that certain date. So it would just be a needless headache to do. It really would be.
Drop there, sniper! Guts off the floor.
So machine guns aren't really a big problem in the United States. They exist, but they're only really used by collectors, and those people aren't really killing anybody. So there's that. Another way to get a machine gun is if it's grandfathered in your family. Say your grandfather bought a STG-44 or something from World War II, and brought it home. And German trophies and all. That can be transferred to you due to like a will or something. It would go to the next of kin, and that would be in your ownership as long as he registered it during a certain period that the ATF required them to do so. Otherwise, they can come to your house and take it, and they're likely going to destroy it unless it's, a unique piece, in which case they'll put it in their archives or something. But the old joke is, if you find a machine gun, you did not find a machine gun. Contact a lawyer and let them deal with it and see what you can do. But, again, like I said, most people aren't shooting places up with machine guns, so it's not really an issue. What is the quote-unquote issue is the AR-15, mainly. Or assault weapons, or whatever you want to call it. Unfortunately, these days, we're not really seeing compromises, I would say, between the left or the right on any sort of gun control. Either the left wants to completely ban guns, or the right completely wants to make it free. Occasionally you might see some stuff pop up, like I think the 21 plus bill was actually a good idea. I know that's controversial to say, but I think that a lot of shootings happen with kids who are fresh out of high school and are upset you know, maybe they're old school because they were bullied or something, or they fall down internet extremism, their minds are malleable, and waiting just a little bit till you're 21 may help people cool down a bit before they can go buy like a gun or something. I think that's fine. I don't think it's a big deal that you have to wait till 21 to get a gun now. I think it's actually fair and it should have been done a long time ago and needs to be implemented for private sales as well. But that's actually a state-by-state basis, so it's really up to the state at that point to implement those. Federally, it is tough to enact gun control laws. It is not tough to do it on a local level because states can do whatever they want, pretty much. While federal laws have to go through the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's job is to uphold things that are constitutional. And unfortunately, whether you disagree with it or not, the Second Amendment grants us the right to bear arms. Now, that's one whole topic. Oh, they were talking about muskets. Oh, they were talking about other shit, or, you know, they were talking about the militia or the military. No, the whole point of the Second Amendment was that essentially it was written in case a foreign or domestic tyrannical government invaded or took over the people in the United States and took away their rights, and we had the right to defend ourselves against them and potentially overthrow them again. We just did that to the British at the time. That's why they wrote the Second Amendment, is saying we don't want to go through that again to where we are left unarmed. We're not going to let the people not be armed, because if they are, it would be easier for us, if we become tyrannical, or the government or some foreign government to come along and do that. That's why that existed. Jesus Christ, this fucking faggot. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to say that. This fucking idiot. That's why that government existed. I don't know what I'm saying. That's why that amendment existed in the first place. So I don't understand the liberals' point of view or the left's point of view in general is that, oh, well, it's talking about the militia. It wasn't. It was in contrast with the militia. As in, because a militia is required for the security of this free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It means that in case a militia needs to be formed again, or, you know, groups of well-trained soldiers need to be formed again to overthrow said government, people should be able to arm themselves and use the guns that they have and their right to carry and stuff like that. That's what that amendment meant. It did not mean that only the militia is allowed to have guns. That's not what it meant. Because if that's what it meant, it would have defeated the whole purpose of the Second Amendment, because, again, the militia at the time was essentially the British and their tyrannical overlords, and we're not going to let, you know, we're not going to, basically, the Founding Fathers didn't want to say, oh, we're not going to let the people bear arms this time because, you know, we're the Founding Fathers, and fuck you, we're making a new government, so you got to listen to us now. That wasn't their intention. That's why it's called We the People. It was the people's right to keep and bear arms. It was not the militia's right to keep and bear arms. The people are the militia. That's what it means. Because when tyranny forms and when a, you know, government tries to take over, it's going to be the militia that's going to help fight them off. It's going to be the militia that helps basically overthrow them if necessary. Now, there's always the argument that says, oh, well, how are you gonna, you know, stop, like, the army from using an F-16 against you? That was a famous Joe Biden quote, and kind of scary if you think about it. First of all, if you're saying that the U.S. Army is going to kill its own people, then you are literally admitting that the government is tyrannical. So at that point, it would be a more of a I told you so moment than anything else. So there's that. So if it comes down to the problem of essentially, if it comes down to the problem of essentially, I'm trying to think, of like the government being used against us, which is not, they're not allowed to do that. They're for foreign affairs basically. The National Guard is meant to do that. And you know, we know how they look. National Guard is a joke, but if the military were ever to be used on its own people, that would just be further proof that we don't live in a free world, we live in a tyrannical society. So there's that. It'll just be more of an I told you so moment, and that's it. So that's why it exists. And also, you're basically saying that there's no hope to fight back at that point then, because, you know, it's better to not even bother having weapons to defend ourselves with, and essentially just get cucked by the government, which I wouldn't agree with. I don't like getting cucked by the government. The whole having guns is an insurance policy, essentially, and even if they were to succeed in wiping out everybody who owns a gun, for example, and I don't think it would ever come down to that, but if it did, the whole point of having that would also make it for as hard for them as possible to do that. And that's the beauty of it. So they're not supposed to go down quietly. You're supposed to go down kicking and screaming. So we're not just going to lay down our arms for no reason, something like that were to happen. However, this makes me seem like I'm a you know, right-winged extremist who wants to shoot up government officials. Not really. Not really. No. I will say no. But I will say that that's kind of why the Second Amendment was invented, or written up, whatever you want to call it. That's why we have it. And it doesn't matter about technology, because I'm pretty sure the Founding Fathers would have taken advancing technology into it. Besides, your average civilian isn't going to be able to own an F-16, so just because we have those things doesn't mean we should be able to...
Target down.
Just because we have those, like... I meant, like, just because the government has those things, it's unrealistic for your average civilian to own something like that, because the government has deep pockets and civilians don't. So, to say that then there's no point is just stupid and just kind of just nihilistic and just, you know, oh, fuck it, dude, we'll never be on par with them. No, I don't think that would be the case, because a lot of those soldiers in the military are family people, probably share similar views and would either refuse to follow those orders, or there would be a massive rift between those power structures and it would just simply collapse. And besides, sympathetic people in those ranks would probably, who knows, arm militias of the people to help fight back against tyrannical rules. But I don't think that's just a big fantasy. I don't think that'll ever happen, really. I think America is more likely to get nuked by some crazy foreign power than America destroying itself. And if it is going to destroy itself, it's going to be a slow process. So, let's get back to the main question. Should civilians own AR-15s? I would say logically and morally yes, but unfortunately there's a lot of cases nowadays where people just cannot seem to be responsible enough to own these things. And what could cause this? Why are so many shootings happening in the United States? Is it because it's easy access to guns? No, I don't believe that. You know why I don't believe that? Because a person's murderous intent is gonna be there regardless of gun exists or not. The gun is just a tool used by that person to commit their evil deeds. A gun is not floating around and killing people by themselves. So it's not the gun's fault that this shit happens, it's the person's fault. That is a reasonable take, in my opinion. And I get it. You can say, well, yeah, but isn't it bad that they have reasonable access to guns? I mean, mass stabbings may happen, but it won't be as nearly as deadly as a mass shooting. That's true. But the problem is that how are we going to... Then this is the main crux of the argument here. What would be considered effective gun control? How would we implement that? I can never find a decent actual fucking solution to this shit. I can never find a decent solution. I have theories and good reasons why these shootings happen. Even I struggle with figuring out a decent way to keep people from killing people. And I just want to go over the arguments, and I hope people understand what these are and how they work, and basically why it's bullshit to even bother trying. So, common one I want to think of is red flag laws. Red flag laws are essentially laws that would allow your neighbors, family members to essentially rat you out to the cops and say, hey, I think this person is mentally ill and I don't trust him with a gun, can you come and take it from him? And they can come to your house without due process, because mainly it's already happening, and there's, I think, like half of all states have some sort of red flag laws on the books already. But they would come to your house, knock on your door, and say, okay, I don't, someone reported you have a gun and you are saying you do certain things. We're going to come in and take your guns from you. First of all, I hope people realize how bad of an idea that is, especially if it is actually a mentally unstable person. What this law would do would, first of all, disarm mentally stable people, because they're more likely going to comply with the cops who are coming in there to take their guns and go through legal routes and waste a lot of money to get their guns back. But if an unstable person gets knocked on the door by the cops, what are they going to do? Are they going to peacefully hand it over, or are they going to say, oh shit, it's now or never, I either am going to kill myself or try to kill as many cops as possible because they just thwarted my plan here? So no, it's going to lead into an increased amount of suicides. It's also going to increase it's also going to lead to an increased amount of distrust between family members. How is a person with these feelings supposed to express them to people now if they know that, oh, well, my family's going to call the cops and get my gun taken away? Now they're going to keep it in, and that's not great. You shouldn't keep these feelings in. You should tell somebody, talk to someone about it. But these red flag laws are basically saying, hey, if you tell somebody, you know, you're being like, you know, sussy or something, you have problematic opinions, then we have the right to take that away from you, take your guns away from you because your family called it in, or your neighbor called it in, or a coworker called it in. Nobody's going to want to talk to people at that point. It's just going to be a disaster. So there's that problem at hand. So red flag laws, I think they could potentially work if they can work out the kinks. I honestly think they can, but I don't know how. I can't think of a good way to keep it from preventing abuse from, like, you know, coming up, or a witch hunt or something like that. So for now, that's off the table until we can think of a way to make that work. Okay, well, what about gun licenses? Will that work? No, I don't think it would. Places like Chicago require you to have a gun license. I believe it's like something like you gotta go through a course, a training class or something, safely use a firearm, and yet they're like the shooting capital of the United States, and mainly because of gang violence, which I'll try to get into later. So, no, gun licenses won't work because the big problem with gun control, I'm going to say this, is that there are just too many guns in the United States for it to work effectively anymore. I get the big one now is people pointing to places like Australia or Japan or something where they don't have shootings, and yet they used to have guns, but now they don't have them anymore. I think that's a stupid fucking example, because if you use your mind for more than 2 seconds, you can realize, well, when those gun laws were enacted, there were a lot less guns out there in general. A lot less. The technology for guns has advanced so much these days that, like, AR-15s weren't exactly commonplace when Australia enacted, say, that massive gun control ban, gun control law, and it also just simply the Australian culture for guns just isn't the same as it is in the United States. It's that simple. So I don't know. I mean, I don't see how, like, a complete outright ban on guns would work like that, and because I would say this: if we could magically snap our fingers and get rid of all guns, shootings would absolutely go down, and they probably wouldn't exist. But we can't do that. There are more AR-15s in the United States alone than vehicles. Just AR-15s. We're not talking about AKs, pistols, any other rifles. Just AR-15s than registered vehicles in the United States. That's an insane amount. That's an insane amount of guns. And what would you do by banning them? What? Like what? How would that work? You're gonna ban them? Okay, well, I mean, banning them, fine, ban them, but all those people have those AR-15s. Usually people have a lot of them, and they can make even more money off of them now by selling them at a premium, probably illegally, but, you know, it's gonna there's guns everywhere. That's what I'm saying. It's just we are in too far in the shithole to effectively enact a massive ban on these guns because it's just not gonna work. Because if it did, Chicago would be a shining example. You need a gun license, but yet shootings still happen amongst people who don't have these licenses and just straight up just gang violence. So I don't think it would necessarily work. I just don't think that. Maybe it would have worked a long time ago, especially if the Gun Control or National Firearms Act had its intended purpose of banning these guns, maybe, but I mean, it just not. It would also effectively ban things like hunting guns, which even liberals admit that we shouldn't ban because, you know, they're just hunting guns. No one's real, unless you're like an ultra liberal, in which case, you know, then yeah, that's probably better. I think even most liberals say, okay, yeah, like a hunting rifle isn't considered a weapon of war or something like that, so we should be able to own those. Which is confusing to me, because every weapon is essentially a weapon of war. Every weapon had its roots in a war weapon. Now you could say, yeah, well, the purpose has changed. Nobody's using, say, 1903 Enfield, or not Enfield, Springfield, I think it was, bolt-action 30-06 rifle for, you know, killing people. If anything, it's either sporting or hunting or just collecting, which is true. But the point is that an AR-15, for example, is a very diverse platform. It can be used for hunting, it can be used for sporting purposes, it can be used for self-defense, and unfortunately, it can also be used for murder, like any other gun. So, saying something is a hunting rifle or, you know, was intended to be a weapon of war is silly to me. Every weapon is meant to be a weapon of war. That's why they were invented. So, you know, some of them, like some bolt-action guns, for example, may have been built ground up to be a hunting gun, but those are usually from designs that otherwise is intended purpose was for war. A bolt-action intended purposes was for war. These designs were submitted to usually war departments to get them approved so soldiers can use them. Shotguns might be an exception because I think shotguns' intended purpose was indeed to be used for hunting, but you know, again, shotguns, you can buy fucking assault shotguns these days with like massive magazines, so are we gonna argue and nowadays shotguns are used for war as well, so are we going to argue then that shotguns are not weapons of war? So it gets into this confusing thing where, oh, the AR-15 was a weapon for war. First of all, I want to say this. Yes, it was. A lot of right-wing people, or like conservatives, are going to say that and say, well, the AR-15 isn't a weapon of war. It's a semi-automatic. No, that is incorrect. The AR-15 that you can buy in stores is a semi-automatic, yes. But the original M16s, for example, had AR-15 stamped on the receiver, basically, printed on the receiver, and that's because that was the design, that was the platform that it was on. That was an AR-15 design. It was stoners basically pitched to the military, like, oh, look how effective this thing is, and they turned it into the M16. Whole bunch of history, but the point is, back in the day, receivers did say AR-15s on them. The military ones did. So it would be inaccurate to say AR-15s are not military guns, because they are. It's just that nowadays, usually it's like an M4 type derivative where it's fully automatic, and you can't buy those in stores, unfortunately. You can't buy those in stores. So there's that. So it's kind of an argument of semantics, but yeah, the conservatives are wrong about that. It is technically a weapon of war, but as is every weapon, so it's not really a big deal. Now, should we ban, like, what? Is there a way to make AR-15 safe? I don't think so. I think that, you know, a gun is going to be a gun. Places like California have a fuseless rifle, basically thing, where you have to have a handguard, or a, sorry, not a handguard, a grip, the grip of the gun. You cannot have the web of your hand between your thumb and your index finger, below the trigger guard, like below the trigger, the highest point of the trigger. So it has to be like an angled grip or something, or it has to be like one of those fins that keep you from wrapping your whole hand around the pistol barrel. You also can't have a flash hider on the end of your gun. You can't have a what do you call it? A foregrip, a vertical foregrip, and stuff like that. Does this help? Well, no, because California actually, to make a featureless rifle, you can get all the parts you need for a quote-unquote featured rifle and just put them on a quote-unquote featureless rifle, and you'll have just a regular, you'll just have a regular gun at that point, just a regular assault-style gun, quote-unquote, because basically you got two options in California. You can get a featured gun, which is like the stereotypical AR-15, but the problem is that you can't have a typical magazine reload ability. You have to set up a system where the upper and lower receiver needs to come apart in order to reload. And you gotta basically reload it that way, so you can't push the magazine release and put in the magazine. Also, it would keep you from using magazines that are over 10 rounds in capacity. In California, you can typically use a magazine that is over 10 rounds in capacity on any gun you want, as long as you bought the mags during Freedom Week. And what that means is, I'm not sure entirely how Freedom Week works, but as long as you have a magazine that is, I guess, registered in their state or something of more than 10 rounds, then you can use it. It's yours. You own it. So there's that. But the only difference is that you are not legally allowed to use one of those extended mags on a quote-unquote featured rifle. You have to use the 10 rounds. Otherwise, featureless rifles, you can use them. So the problem is, though, places like Arizona don't have magazine restrictions, and it's right next door to California. All someone needs to do is drive to fucking Arizona, my home state, pick up an extended magazine, drive back to California, and use it on the gun there if they really wanted to, or just wait till Freedom Week and purchase the magazines there. As for the whole featured rifle, all you gotta do is buy a fucking pistol grip, because they're legal on featured rifles. It's just that you just gotta put it on your AR-15. So I hope I understand what I'm getting at here, is that this law of the featured rifle isn't protecting anybody, because anybody who has the intent to kill somebody with a gun doesn't care about what these laws say about them. Sure, it might be easier just to go to the store and buy a featured rifle off the rack and shoot up somebody with that, but a person who is meticulously planning out a mass shooting, which most shooters do, are going to say, alright, well, I'm going to buy a featured gun, they're going to buy a pistol grip, and I'm going to wait till Freedom Week or whatever, and buy some magazines for it, and then I'll enact my plan. It's not hard for them to do these things, it's just a simple matter of waiting. Things like foregrips are not banned in California. You can still buy them. It's just that you can't put them on your featureless rifle. You can put them on your featured rifle. So it makes no sense. These laws make no sense, because you can just put all that shit on your, regular fucking rifle and make it into something illegal. Which, you think a fucking mass shooter don't care about if a gun is illegal or not? No, they don't. So a lot of these nonsense gun laws do nothing except for basically inconvenience law-abiding citizens, because it's like, fuck, well, I can't have a gun I want now, but the criminals can, because you think they give a fuck about the law? No, they don't. And that's the whole problem with gun control, is that usually it ends up punishing law-abiding citizens and not the people who are committing these shootings, because they don't care. So what about, like, deeper background checks? Well, how would that work? What are they looking for? We already have background checks in every state. If you go to an FFL or a gun store, you've got to have a background check to buy a gun. What it checks for is if you've been institutionalized or you have a felony. If you have a felony, you can't own a gun. Simple as that. If you've been institutionalized, you can't own a gun. Simple as that. However, I would say, though, to be fair to the left's perspective, there are states where you can completely bypass a background check to purchase a gun. States like Arizona, for example, my home state. You can just meet up online and say, hey, I'd like to purchase this gun from you. You're a private seller. They said, alright, cool, I'll meet you at this location. You go there. they ask to see your ID to make sure you're 18, and that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. There's nothing more than just needing to be 18 and seeing someone's valid ID to basically sell a gun to somebody in Arizona, which is a fucking blessing, because I know I don't have to worry about that shit, because I'm never going to kill anybody, or I don't have any felonies or anything like that, and I can just go buy a used gun from somebody because they don't want it at a cheaper price without having the headache of going through that background check at a gun store, which they're likely going to charge you for. But at the same time, that means felons can easily get a gun. All they got to do is say, yeah, I'm 18, and that's it. Or show the ID, but, you know, the point still stands. So, other states, though, do require you to obviously go get a background check, even if it's a private sale. I think Oregon is like one of those places. Basically, if you're going to make a private sale, you got to arrange a time to come inside of a store. You have to do the background check in the store. They'll process it for you, and then you can do the trade there. It depended on state, and I think that would be fine. But unfortunately, a lot of these shooters are just buying guns straight off the rack, brand new. So it's not really going to be used guns that these shooters are using. It's mostly just brand new guns. So I guess this law would help in some ways, but in most ways it probably wouldn't.
The enemy's taking the lead.
It probably wouldn't work, so there's that. It probably won't work in that regards, but you know what? I'd be kind of okay. I don't know. I wouldn't be okay with it because it would be annoying for me, because I know I would never kill anybody, and I just want to make it as easy as possible to buy a gun. But, you know, if it makes the liberals happy, make them stop bitching about it, then fine. Go ahead, try to pass it, see if it works, and if it doesn't, well, guess what? They're probably not going to change it anyway because they didn't repeal the NFA, and that's not protecting anybody, for the exception of the machine gun part and the suppressor part. So, what else can you do? Oh shit, I just killed my friend by doing that. Some might say, well, okay, fine, but you need to get like a approval from a psychologist or something. Well, how is that going to work? First of all, that means everybody who wants a gun needs to go find a psychologist and pay for a session, or many sessions, who knows. And do you think a mass shooter is going to just lay out all the beans to somebody who is a psychologist, who has the ability to prove whether or not they are allowed to own a gun? Do you think they are going to be able to just see that? No. No, they're not, because they can't. They're not magical people who can tell when someone's lying about their intentions. A person. Oh, I gotta get you back. A person is gonna lie out their asshole and say, "Oh, I'm a good guy. I'm a stand-up member of society. Please approve me of my gun permit." All right, sir. There you go. There you go. And since healthcare is a joke, a lot of people are not going to be able to afford that, and they're going to be out of protection because they can't afford to go see a psychologist for this sort of thing. Also, that would just backload a shit ton of psychologists. I mean, who's going to take up that job of just, you know, becoming a psychological gun license person, you know? So I think that's out of the books, because it just would not be effective, because again, also it would be up to the psychologist. So even, let's just say somebody is indeed pro, like, you know, is a pro-gun American, and he's never killed anybody, no intention to kill anybody, but the psychologist is a gun-hating liberal, and she's gonna, you know, basically deny it on the grounds of, I think this person is a danger to society, based on some bullshit. You know? I mean, your average white hick in bumfuck county, West Virginia, isn't killing people with their guns. You're just shooting it in their backyard, preparing for the day that, say, the government's going to try to take it from them. That's their mindset, and they're not going to kill a random person. Obviously, there are cases where, you know, they might have a wet dream about killing some black guy who comes on his property or something, but, you know, honestly, in those counties, there aren't many black people, and there aren't many people committing crimes in those counties, so it's more of a fantasy than anything. In inner cities, where crime is rampant and poor people exist, those things are not as, you know, those things are more common to happen, so, and yet inner cities tend to have more strict gun control laws, so what does that tell you? So it's just a lot of gun control is just, I think, is impossible. Just one, for the amount of guns we have in the United States. Two, it's either going to be ripe with abuse, and it's just going to be hard to figure out a way to implement effective, actual, like, common sense gun control. And I am actually for it if they can figure it out. I love guns, but if they can figure out a way to keep people from psychos from getting guns, I'd love to hear it. Now, I have my own theories on why, and I would like to get into it, on why people are committing these shootings in the United States.
Changing mags.
Essentially, it's a combination of factors, but there's two main things. Fatherless behavior and falling down an internet echo chamber of extremism. Those are my two theories on why there are so many shootings in the United States. Fatherless behavior, as in like somebody who acts out because they don't have a father figure or guidance in life. Poverty might be a good, you know, might be one to add on there as well. But that's mostly gang shootings, and as we've learned, the left doesn't really care about gang shootings at all, and I'll get into that in a bit. When it comes to just the statistics behind shootings and how it's not really as bad as people think it is. So it's coming down to fatherless behavior and
UAV standing by.
and internet extremism echo chambers. When somebody, and I think a lot of the problems in our society in general are indeed the result of internet echo chambers in general, because people just fall down these paths of, they might come into a community or something, or meet a group of friends with fairly neutral opinions, and eventually they devolve into what their friends share in terms of opinions, and they seek out other people who have similar opinions, and it goes further and further and further down into this extremism, like, feedback loop where they're not listening to opinions outside of their own echo chamber. Things like, you know, targeted, like, you know, TikTok content or targeted, you know, news content on Twitter or some shit. That shit just feeds into their preconceived biases and ideas, and people come away from these certain things with unrealistic and ungrounded just conceptions of the other side. Mostly, liberals are very extreme when it comes to, you know, calling everyone who's on the right Nazis and shit like that, and the right is very extreme when it comes to calling everybody on the left communists, and it's growing and growing and growing, and it's getting worse over time, because more and more people are falling into these echo chambers, and more people are starting to realize, holy shit, the other side is this evil, corrupted shit, and it's often very misguided to think these things, in my opinion. So, I don't think everybody on the right is a Nazi. I don't think everyone on the left is a communist. But, unfortunately, it's starting to seem that way for a lot of people because of the political rift we have in this world that we live in. Hold on. Shit. This political rift that we are basically in the United States. Back in the days of, say, even as early as Obama, I did not see this level of political hostility between each other. Ever since Trump took presidency, it just seems like the rift between the parties have grown quite a bit. And we rarely even have the ability to agree on genuinely bipartisan things that should be bipartisan, but somebody has a problem with it. Alright. So, because if that means, like, agreeing with a fellow conservative or something, or, you know, someone on the other side, that means, oh wait, I'm agreeing with a Nazi, oh wait, I'm agreeing with a communist. So, nothing ever gets done. It's just a constant state of stalemates, and when something is done, it's usually because either one side, in terms of a state, is the majority leader in the House, or whatever you want to call it, and they pass laws that benefit the conservatives, and the liberal states pass laws that benefit the liberals. And, you know, it's just this weird thing where we can't just agree on common sense shit, and it's so fucking annoying. And I think what's mostly to blame for this is social media. I really do. Social media has given a voice to people who probably should just keep their mouths shut. And I'm a proponent of free speech, but the problem is that a lot of bad opinions are shared on social media, and people who share those fucking terrible opinions boost those voices and those things said by these shitty people, and other people who may be neutral on said topics are going to look at that and say, holy shit, maybe he has a point. Maybe that person has a point, and that becomes the new meta in terms of, you know, like a political shit, and it just grows from there. More and more people give shit opinions that they just pull out of their ass and share it, and people will agree with it, and it gets blown up more and more and more until that becomes the meta for that political side or whatever it is. And you know, it just gets worse. It just gets worse every day, and that's because social media gives these morons a voice. And that in turn leads to back what I said earlier, those echo chambers of extremism. People are not seeking out views that basically oppose their own. And if they do get in a debate with somebody, they're stuck on their ways. I've never been in a debate with somebody where they end up changing their opinions on anything. It's always some, like, you know, it's in one ear, out the other ear. And the same thing with me, but I'd like to think I'm more open about issues. But I've learned that you can't convince people by arguing with them online. They have to come to these conclusions themselves. Again, mainly because that echo chamber thing I'm talking about. And it's not easy to break through to that. It really isn't, because that means going against your own, like, notions and what you've grown to believe in, and you're an individual or something, and you've formed these opinions yourselves, when in reality it's because it's the people around you. I think certain people are more immune to that group mentality. I think that's people who are maybe autistic, or they have certain traits about them that keep them where they don't really care about fitting in. They care more about being true to themselves. And you know, it seems like, oh, narcissistic for me to say, but I consider myself to be more true to myself than with one faction of people. Although I will say, I do think I'm more right-leaning. I do share a lot of left-leaning ideals, and I think it's weird that people feel the need to just blindly follow one side or the other simply because they hold more, you know, opinions on, say, the left or right side of the political spectrum than the other. So I don't know why people just can't be true to themselves and realize maybe what I'm saying is stupid. Maybe saying that children can consent to permanent damage to their bodies by cutting off their dicks or their breasts or something, or covering them full of chemicals and letting them run away to trans-sanctuary states to get surgeries without their parents' permission. Maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe I shouldn't be thinking about these things, and maybe I shouldn't agree with these people who say it's fine. And that's a whole other discussion for another topic, but hang on.
Locating the next hardpoint. Get ready.
But it kind of applies to just politics in general and how it's leading rifts between us, and we can't come to an agreement on anything because, you know, no matter how absurd the opinion is, because it's on the left and you're a lefty, you have to agree with it. Or if it's on the right and you're a righty, you have to agree with it. The thing is, though, is that lefties' opinions are always changing. The right's opinions are more or less consistent. That's the only difference. They like the old days. They like the old traditional values and shit like that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And progressive are like, well, maybe some shit is broke and we should fix it. And I'd say both sides have valid reasoning and valid thought processes behind them. And, you know, I think that I think George Washington said a two-party system is not the way to go or some shit, and I'm more and more I think about it, the more I agree, but unfortunately, two-party systems are going to arise because people have different opinions on shit. And, you know, being a libertarian isn't going to get you anywhere because either you're going to vote right or left. That's it. Those are your only two options. Vote Republican, vote Democrat. You can be a libertarian all you want, but those are your only two choices because, let's be real, nobody gives a fuck about a libertarian office. Nobody gives a fuck about them being elected. Nobody gives a fuck about, you know, another opposing side because, hey, you're going to vote a libertarian in office? Good luck with that, pal. might work on small local levels where somebody can get into, like, you know, the community or something and connect with people, but it's never going to work on a big election where change actually, something like that actually matters. So, get real. Get fucking real. You have two options and that's it. Vote left, vote right. Now,
Taking effective fire! Enemy inside the perimeter. Shut eye!
I lost my train of thought because I'm focused on Call of
Confirming
Duty.
next hard point.
Alright, so yeah, so I guess we can go back to the extremism thing where echo chambers cause this sort of thing and therefore cause shootings. The trans shooter was a lefty extremist, but I'll admit this, a lot of right-winged extremists are committing shootings. I would say more right-winged extremists commit your traditional style shootings, whereas I'm not talking about gang violence, but the majority of people who commit these shootings are somewhat right-winged, and unfortunately it's just the way it is, or just old extremist views in general. So I don't think it's fair to blame the right or the left for that sort of thing. These people are psychos, and again, I think there's a healthy level. I think you can be healthily liberal and healthily conservative. You can say, hey, you know what? We have these laws here that work for people, and we shouldn't change them. And liberals are like, well, I would disagree, and I think some new laws would be okay, and you know, we should enact more progressive things in certain areas. And I think in moderation, a two-party system is fine, but we're seeing a rift between where we're actually calling each other Nazis or communists just for disagreeing with each other, which is insanity to me. Fuck, dude.
Enemy personnel at the hard point.
And it gets to the point of insanity. It just gets to the point of insanity where we can't get anything done. And I know I'm somewhat of a broken record, but it's true. And honestly, I don't know if there's a fix for it. I think the big part of the blame for this is the media and social media. The news for spreading lies and deceit, fear-mongering, and social media for giving dumbasses a voice. And getting those onto the media and letting them spew them out when it becomes the meta and becomes the norm.
Copy. UAV is on station. Enemies inside the perimeter.
It really is a bleak look, and I think every society is doomed to fail eventually. And I think America's approaching that deadline where it's going to collapse in on itself, and it's going to be a shell of its former glory. And I think I'm not going to say like America is going to fall anytime soon, but it is in the active process of falling, and it's not great, because eventually something is going to happen, a massive shift. And here's my predictions on what it might be. Some progressive is going to somehow get a law through that is going to drastically change the American system as we know it. It's going to be maybe another assault weapons ban. Maybe it's going to be a fucking redesign of the Second Amendment or some shit. And when that happens, shit is going to hit the fan fast. But I will say this. Conservatives like to be all talk, but no bite, or all bark and no bite. And anytime they say shit like, oh, well, this gun here is to protect my personal freedoms or some shit, and every time your personal freedoms are taken away, they don't do shit. They just stand around with their thumbs up their ass. And I have a good feeling that when shit like that hits the fan, they're going to just bend over and take it. There might be some resistance here and there, but it's going to be quelled quite quickly because people get bored and move on because they got other shit they got to do in their lives. And it's just going to get to the point where a shift in or not a shift, a bomb is going to go off. A metaphorical bomb is going to go off in the fucking political spectrum here. And it's going to be one of those things where I don't know if it would lead to another civil war. I doubt it, but something's going to happen on that scale of just horrible shit. Maybe another Cold War level of Red Scare where, oh, I'm reporting my neighbor for being a fucking a conservative and he's going to go into prison, or I'm going to report my neighbor for being a potential communist, and he's gonna go fucking jail or whatever. It's gonna reach that point unless we can come together and actually enact some like quell the fears of people. And I'm gonna say this, and it's gonna seem kind of psychopathic and schizophrenic, but I think a good chunk of mass shootings are indeed orchestrated by the feds and the federal government to enact stricter gun control laws. Because you know what? You know what's keeping them from actually enacting a lot of these laws to begin with is the fact that we have fucking guns. If we can take away the ability or people's rights to own these things, it's going to make it easier in the long term to control the public. Like they do in the UK, where you get fucking arrested for saying I hate trans people or some shit. You know? It's ridiculous. And that shit is going to come into the United States if we allow shit like our guns to be taken away. So I'm more pro 2A, but I think there needs to be something done. And I think that a part of me just wants to say, fuck all these degenerate libshits who live in these big cities where all these shootings occur. Fuck them all, ban guns for them, but let us who live in a small town or some rural area of the United States where we don't have massive crime, because hey, guess what? Homogeneous societies tend to do better than ones that are mixed. I'm just going to say that. Or sorry, I think it's monogenous, whatever the fuck you want to call it. Do better than mixed race societies, because guess what? It's going to sound racist, but black people indeed commit more crimes than white people. And, well, I want to say more violent crimes. The United States by gang violence. And I wanted to get into this because it pisses me off. It pisses me off to no end.
Grind. Label 1. Secure enemy
That
tags and get them to the extract point.
liberals who use the statistics from gang shootings to include in that, oh, we already had 900 mass shootings in the United States or whatever this year. Actually, I think it's like 200 in this year so far. And that's like more than one a day. When in reality, the vast majority of those mass shootings are gang violence in inner city fucking degenerate shitholes where their gun laws are likely pretty fucking high, and gang shootings are going to involve shootings with multiple participants and multiple casualties, maybe not deaths, but multiple casualties, and that's going to get added to the list because gang shootings are common, and the liberals left only care about gang shootings if they can add to those gun statistics. Otherwise, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about gangs at all, because they know that the majority of these gangs exist within their liberal shithole cities, and their little gun control laws in those cities aren't doing shit to stop it. So they misrepresent the statistics to say, oh, look how bad it is, when in reality, as long as you stay in a decent part of town, and you know, you're not in a gang, you should be fine. The odds of getting in a fucking shooting in the United States is fucking minuscule. I think you have a higher chance of getting struck by lightning than getting into a shooting like what we saw in Texas the other day. Or yesterday, I think it was. Where somebody, say, comes into a mall and starts shooting for no reason, or a library, not a library, or like a movie theater and starts shooting, or, you know, a school and starts shooting. Those are the mass shootings people should be worried about. Your fucking fake worry over getting involved in gang violence is bullshit, and you know it. You know it, you know it's bullshit, you just don't want to admit it's bullshit because you don't actually care about gang violence. You only care about the violence committed by typically, fairly, white men who dress up all in tactical gear and shoot up like a school or something, or a grocery store, or whatever it is. And a lot of these people are groomed by feds online and are encouraged to do this shit by people in those echo chambers. And the feds know it's about to happen, but they're not going to let it, they're not going to stop it, because guess what? Hey, it's good for our gun control debate, right? Look at all these shootings. Look at all these dead kids. There's a fucking funny joke where how many more dead kids do we need to kill? Or how many more kids do we need to kill before you let us take the guns? And it's the same shit. I truly believe, not all, but a good chunk of mass shootings are caused by people who are groomed by feds online to get behind their fucking agenda of disarming the American public. I truly believe that, because where do these people get some of this shit? Like, the was it Uvalde? I don't remember which one it was, but one of those schools, I think it was Uvalde, where this kid just got all these guns just out of nowhere. He lived with his family. I think he only just got a job or something. He somehow got an expensive-ass truck, got 2 Daniel Defense AR-15s, which are no joke, not cheap. They're fucking expensive, and they're reliable as hell, and they're really nice, and I want one, but, you know, I'm not going to kill anybody with it, but they're really nice. He got them. He got an EOTech, 2 of them, both for rifles, also pretty damn expensive. It's like, if it was like an off-brand, then maybe I would have fucking, you know, agreed, but this shit is no joke. This is like, the average minimum wage salary a year is like $60,000. And this dude just started working. Where did he get the money to buy this expensive-ass equipment, guns, and training to do this shit? He also didn't have a driver's license, and he just somehow drove there. The fucking cops, when they arrived, were told by the commander to stand down and not intervene, even though he was in the middle of shooting up kids, and they just kind of just stood around and let it happen, as we infamously saw. There is no way all that shit just coincidentally happens. It is bullshit. But regardless, you can't do much about feds orchestrating mass shootings, because they're going to continue to groom kids online and orchestrate this shit. And, you know, if only we could, you know, for example in Texas, ask the fucking guy why he did this, or what was his motives. But we don't even know what he looks like now. I saw his dead body. He looks Mexican, so that's probably why the media is a bit too cautious about, you know, releasing his identity. Because, you know, oh, white Hitler guy comes up and does this, but, you know, whatever. It's just insanity. It is pure fucking insanity these days that we can't just come to a simple just agreement. And I know it seems weird, because it's like, if you think, oh, a lot of them are orchestrated, then you're essentially saying you're bending over to the government by enacting gun control. Well, it's either that or continuing letting them kill kids and shit. And I don't even know what would be the right choice here, because I honestly I feel bad, like, say, for people who own guns and they're shamed by people who don't own them and are fear-mongered by the media about shootings and saying, oh, you're killing children by owning a gun. No, you're not. People who own guns and go out and kill children are people who are responsible for fucking killing children. Not the fucking idiots, or not the idiots, not the fucking people who just have a gun and use it recreationally, or just for collecting or whatever it is, or just because they like guns. They aren't killing people. The majority of people in the United States who own guns will never kill anybody in their life. So, it's just a fucking headache to talk about. Not to mention, the United States has one of the highest populations in the world. I think we're like 3rd or 4th in terms of population. And since we're allowed to own guns, we're going to hear about shootings when they happen. We just are. It's going to make national news when an actual shooting happens. Not a gang shooting, not a fucking suicide, but an actual shooting where we saw like in Uvalde or the mall at Texas the other day.
Friendly VTOL on station.
We're going to see that hit national news. And guess what? That shit does not happen every day, just like people like to believe. What happens every day is gang shootings. What doesn't happen every day is shootings like those, where it's just purposely targeting innocent people and shit like that, and shit just fucking goes haywire and people die, and that is used to politicize their deaths, to enact gun control, which isn't really like gun control laws that are not going to get at the root of the problem, which is fatherless behavior and internet extremism. But at the same time, how do you fix somebody? How do you give somebody a dad and make them a more stable family? How do you keep somebody from spending all their time online and falling into those internet echo chambers? You can't. You can't do it. You can't fucking do it. So we're at a weird point where there is nothing really truly to be done about these shootings in the United States, and we just got to deal with it. And you know what? I take that back. I think there is something we can do. Wow, 5 kills the whole game. I think there is something we can do. That is arming yourself and getting training. That is the best possible scenario I can think of just to see a noticeable drop in mass shootings. Because everything else I've talked about, and I get it's rambling. I don't have a script. I'm just going off whatever comes in my head, and it's scattered. But one thing I can say is that if you get training, you buy a gun, you know how to use it, practice proper shot placement, and you carry it with you every day wherever you go, you are going to be protected. You at least have a fighting chance against a psycho with a AR-15. You will at least have a chance. You will have a chance at that sort of thing. I don't understand, and I've always said this, these fucking lefty soy boys who complain about mass shootings but refuse to protect themselves from someone who may actually kill them with a fucking AR-15 or whatever you want to call it, one day in a mall, in a hotel, or in a fucking theater or school. Actually, schools I'll get into in a bit. But these fucking soy boys out there who are complaining about this shit and not seeing the obvious solution. Would you rather be caught at the end of someone else's gun barrel with nothing or something to defend yourself with? I know my choice. I know the obvious solution is to fucking protect yourself, because these politicians are at a stalemate with gun control. We are never going to be able to enact common sense shit in this country. We're just not. So it's better to just fucking get a gun yourself and have it to where you can protect yourself in case a fucking psycho comes in with an AR-15 and tries to kill you. And the more people there are with a gun around you, the more likely that person with that AR-15 is going to get overwhelmed, and they're going to go ahead and fucking get fucked in the ass. And maybe the next time a shooter comes out, they'll think twice about, oh shit, the public is starting to retaliate against this shit, and maybe I should fucking reconsider doing this shit, unless they have a suicidal death wish in general, which, you know, whatever then. It's gonna happen regardless, so. So it's just, I don't see the point in people complaining about shootings when there's an obvious solution, when they can just buy a handgun and get training and protect themselves, because, you know, I'm getting sick of it. I'm getting sick of this bullshit. As for schools, I think there needs to be an armed security guard. That's one effective gun control thing I could say that we could do, and people are going to bitch about it and complain about it because they would rather see guns banned, because supposedly that's easier because they don't own one and they don't understand how it works. That would be easier to implement than saying, you know, hiring security guards, which I disagree with. That would be easier to hire security guards at every school. Armed, well-trained security guards at school. No, I don't think teachers should have guns. No, I don't think students should have guns, obviously. I think security guards should. At every fucking school, there should be an armed security guard. Just one more person added to the staff. At least one security guard. At least one. And it would be a thing where schools are not allowed to operate unless they have that. And I'd be fine with it. I honestly would be.
Copy. UAV orbiting the Charlie secure.
And no, metal detectors ain't gonna do shit. Because a person who's not coming into school to shoot up a class or something, they're gonna do it immediately, and they fucking walk right through the metal detector. And guess what? Guess what? That's not gonna do shit. So that's one good thing I could say is supporting getting armed guards at schools, and you know, the bulletproof backpack isn't gonna do anything. A shooter, I mean, fucking 5.56 is a brutal round, and it's not gonna do much for a backpack to stop that sort of thing. So there's that. Also, it's like the duck and cover shit that kids were taught during the Cold War. It's the illusion of safety. If a person comes into your school with an AR-15, unless you have a decent lock on your classroom and decent doors, you're better say your prayers, because unfortunately, because nobody was there at the entrance of your fucking school to protect you,
Enemy is securing Alpha.
you're gonna fucking die. So it is what it is. I think that, again, security guards at schools should be required by law, federal law actually, I would say. It would be an absolute requirement. And that would create jobs for a lot of security people, including people like me who are already interested in that sort of thing. I would say though that they should not be allowed to intervene in sort of like say a I don't know, say like kids get in a fight or something and you know they're punching each other. I think that we need to be careful with sort of like those security guards, because it's like, oh well, they have a gun on them and fucking a kid might reach for their pocket or something. I think that there needs to be, I guess, I mean, fights happen all the time, okay? Fuck it. Pretend I didn't say that, because fights happen all the time at school and they can figure it out themselves. But I would say it shouldn't be the fucking security officer's job to break up like simple fights at school. It should be their job to protect the school from potential shooters. So that should be that. As for public, I mean, I live in a small town. I don't have a bunch of degenerate fucking scumbag criminals here. Most we get is a local meth head pushing over a granny on the side of the road. And that's the most of the violent crime we see in this, in my town now, so I'm not too worried about it, getting involved in a mass shooting, because I always carry, so there's that, but also, I live in a low-crime area, and, people who live in high-crime areas and are still walking around without something to protect themselves with are admittedly morons, and I've said it before. The first person who should have a gun in the United States are the people who hate it most. Because at the end of the day, the people who hate guns most are likely gonna be less likely to misuse one and potentially use one when it's actually needed for self-defense and basically defending your family, friends, or your community. And I don't know, it's just, I feel like these idiots who complain about mass shootings and refuse to carry a gun to protect themselves in public are just purposely putting themselves at risk at this point. Because we've already established politicians aren't going to do any change. We've already established change is nearly impossible because there are going to be workarounds for everything. The best you can do is just stay strapped yourself and not get caught lacking. Like, seriously. Like, seriously, that is the only logical, like, immediate thing you can do right now as of today to see it decrease or increase your survivability at least in mass shootings. But people are too fucking pussy to actually go through that. They would rather just let the politicians deal with it. Let them deal with it. When that shouldn't be something you should be relying on. I know this was a long-winded fucking bullshit discussion, and I know it was all over the place, but maybe I might remake this video with proper... And I'm thinking about like writing up a little, basically, essay on this sort of thing. And talking about it in more concise detail, but I just had to ramble about it because it's been on my mind lately and it's been pissing me off, especially after the shooting in Texas today or yesterday. And I saw some of the fucking crime scene footage, and it was bad. It was bad. Like a little kid had his brain splayed out across the concrete. Fucking a bunch of people just lined up in a corner or whatever that was. A bunch of dead bodies, a lot of blood. Of course, the body of the shooter. It's brutal. It was fucking brutal, and my heart goes out to the families. I'm not religious. God's prayers don't do shit, but my heart goes out to the families of these victims. But I think there needs to be some sort of fucking just... There needs to be people out there who are not spineless cowards and are willing to go through the training and go through the process of getting, you know, your own gun, getting a nice little holster to have concealed carry. Open carry does nothing. Open carry is more dangerous than it is safe. I would say concealed carry is the way to go. It puts people at ease, and it, you know, it just puts people at ease. It'll put people at ease unless you're a man in the uniform. It'll put people at ease if it's concealed.
Reloading. Covering you. We control Bravo.
So I guess my whole message of this video or live stream, whatever it was, is get training, get a gun, and practice with it, and get prepared, because these psychos are not going to go away. These fucking degenerate shitheads are not going to go away, because AR-15s are here to stay. Assault weapons are here to stay. Focus on that. And the best you can do is defend yourself. I'm not saying you should walk around with your own AR-15 in public. That's a big bad idea. But you should walk around with a gun in your fucking like an internal holster, because that way you're not on the other end of someone else's gun barrel without something to protect yourself with. That's my honest take. That is my honest opinion. And it's the only thing that really makes sense, because gun control laws are lousy, nothing, because there are easy workarounds to everything. At least there are easy workarounds to the ideas that liberals are touting as effective gun control these days. So that's really all I wanted to say. Again, I might remake this into a more concise point of a video. I'll read off a script or something. Who knows? But thanks for watching, I guess. Hope to see you guys more later on, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time, I guess.